Hey, hey. So, what triggers you? What? Why do you get triggered and then they don't? Like, what's going on when that happens? Come on in and let's find out. So, my name's Debbie Pearson, and I'm creator of the Women's Self Mastery and Women's Self Mastery community. And this community is a community of like-minded women, for women, by women, because of women, and very supportive and kind and compassionate. So this is your progression video, and today we're going to talk about 3 triggers that might create problems in your life. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're enjoying what I'm sharing, of course, hit one of the buttons. You know what to do. And if you know somebody that's suffering and this video can help them, please feel free to share it. All right, so let's talk about what is a trigger, because I think a lot of us feel like we know what a trigger is. Like, oh, they triggered me. We get really mad about stuff. But, there's, and that is true. There is a strong emotional reaction to something or someone that they did or didn't do, right? Or said or didn't say. And we have a really strong emotional reaction to that. For some people, though, it happens like every day or often. And for other people, it happens multiple times in a day. It's a lot of upset going on every day. So typically we are, to describe it a little bit, is like we're reacting to something that's happening in the moment, but it's a bigger energy than what maybe should be happening, because it's actually bringing up information from the past, and it's as if our body is reliving it. And so all of those hormones and chemicals are flooding us, and we feel a lot like a lot of pain, emotional pain. So we are triggered in the present by an inner wound that came from the past. That may be the distant past, like from when you were a child, and maybe it was later on something happened. And as much as I hate to say it, sometimes people are 34 years old, and especially a female, maybe you get raped or mugged, and it's very, very traumatic. And so it creates a lot of problems. Those kinds of things are more what we would call absolute genuine fear, because something terrible did happen to you. These other ones, like if somebody ghosts us on a text or something, we get like really, really upset. It's more of a perceived fear. It's still genuine. We still absolutely 100% feel it. I don't want to disregard anybody's feelings. But what's going on in the moment of maybe somebody ghosting you is not the traumatic injury, the inner core wound from the past. It's just reminding us of that. Okay, so we're going to keep going. So one of the things is, before I go any further, if you are live, please put hashtag live, your name, where you're from. And if you're watching the replay, please put hashtag replay. So we're triggered by an inner wound, and it reminds us of the wound that we have, and it's very upsetting. And I'm going to speak a lot to my childhood in this video. While I was like putting it together, I was like, oh, I have a story for that. And then I got a story, and I was like, oh, Lord, I got a lot of stories for this one. So I'm going to share some of them with you. The interesting thing is, by doing the work that I do, which is emotional education, by doing the work myself and processing it all, it's like I still remember it, but it's not this horrible traumatic thing anymore. So it's like, if you think of like an open gaping wound is very, very painful if it gets, touched or whatever. But a scar is not so painful. It reminds us of what happened in the past, but that pain is gone. So there's memory, but memory without pain. So different and so emotionally freeing. And that's what this channel is about, is helping you to, free yourself emotionally from that pain. So let's say in this case, what I'm talking about triggering, let's say you're a child and you had no say-so in your home. Maybe you didn't feel very valued. You felt like, what you wanted, your needs, whatever, they were not valued. That you didn't matter. Like it just kind of didn't matter what you were thinking or feeling. you may have begun to assume that you were either unwanted, unlovable, undeserving of different things. And it doesn't stay in childhood and then, you leave home and it stays there. Unfortunately, it comes with us well into adulthood. And unless somebody actually processes what's going on, and we could talk more about processes in a little bit, but actually processes it, it's like you don't just get rid of it. It's there and it's really stuck in your unconscious. And there are things that happen in present day life that reset it, and hit that inner wound, creating an issue, right? Okay, so there are ways to get this to dissolve or unpack this emotional pain. There are ways that people use different modalities and techniques to help them alleviate some of this pain. Some people have done so with like yoga or meditating, and they're like, that's it. That's what I needed. I did it. And now I want to teach everybody. And it's great. That did not work for me. For other people, it might be breath work or journaling or Reiki or I don't know, something else. Maybe even therapy. I did therapy off and on for 30 years. And yeah, I learned a lot, but that wasn't it for me. For me, I needed something very logical and I needed to understand it. So kind of a step-by-step proven process kind of thing. Okay, so back to triggers. So if in the present moment somebody says something that's uncomfortable, and it reminds you of that feeling like you don't matter or you aren't valued, at that moment in time, it's like it triggers a chemical reaction, right? And then your brain floods your body with these certain chemicals. And so there's just this huge challenge of how do I handle that? Because it could maybe make you feel anxious, nervous, upset. And you're like, I just, we usually do one of the 4 F's: fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. We'll talk about that in a minute. But most people know fight, flight, and freeze. Fawn, just so you know, is fawning, F-A-W-N, fawning all over him, or it's people pleasing, or maybe trying to fix something. So anyway, the body responds in its normal way that it's supposed to. And when we are in a moment where we're not challenged so much and it still does that, we're not in actual physical harm and it does that, it's very, very, very upsetting. Okay. So I'm going to be talking this week about triggers, next week about triggers. And then the following week, I'm doing a video called Triggers and Body Responses. So you can, it's like, what does your body do when you're reacting to something, right? It's very interesting. Okay. So let me get back to this. So if in the moment that something's happening or not happening, right, and it reminds you of that feeling from childhood, it's like, unworthy, unlovable, undeserving, right? The reaction is super, super strong. And as adults, we're like, I don't know, like, I should be able to control that or manage that. Or is there something wrong with me that it looks like everybody else is walking around, they're adults, but I feel like a child inside, right? So we have all this upset going on with us. And, it's a really, really big problem that out there, there's just not that much information about how you go through a process. I hear and see things that say like, well, accept your feelings. It's like, okay, well, how do I do that, right? Or communicate your feelings. It's like, you mean journal? Because like I journaled for, I think, 10 years, but I didn't understand the difference between documenting my life and reflective journaling. So if you're going to journal, go for it, but have it be reflective, being thinking about why things could have happened. And maybe you can answer some of it yourself, because you can. I've heard take a step back, and which is a good suggestion, pause for a minute and maybe think about what happened, right? That might help you. I've heard like a breathing technique and or practice mindfulness or even go exercise. And they don't really tell you like how. So it's kind of like, these are great suggestions. And if it works for you, that's awesome. If not, stick around because I will give you some activities and tell you when we're going to do them and where we're going to do them. All right, so I see the things that I just talked about, breathing or exercise or whatever, kind of more like suggestions of things you could do, but I don't really see them as solutions because they don't really work for everybody. So I want to teach you how to dissolve the emotional pain, and there is a step-by-step process that we can go through. All right, so think of a video that you've seen that goes, it's like there's something that happens that's very, very fast, and then they put it into slow motion. So for me, I saw a slow-mo of a hummingbird, and I saw how their wings flap, and I saw, which was just phenomenal and amazing. And then I saw, like, they have this long black beak, dark brown, whatever beak. And I thought, okay, so they like kind of stick their tongue out a little bit and they get some nectar. No, they've got a white tongue that's as long, actually probably twice as long as this beak that comes out and then brings the nectar back in. I was blown away because it's like they're little bitty bodies. Where all that tongue, where does it fit? It was just astonishing. I thought it was amazing. But what happened in that moment, or not in that moment, but happened in that video was being able to watch it in a slow down motion. I got to really look at and be able to process what happens when a hummingbird is eating, right? And so the process that I do is similar to that. It's like we step back, we slow down, and we really look at, what am I thinking? What am I feeling? What's possible coming from this? How am I going to deal with it? And it's huge in how well it works, right? So I teach women to slow down the emotions and the feelings that go along with that trigger, and then identify what's really happening with them. And then at that point, then instead of saying, like, I'm so mad, it makes me mad all the time, maybe a more accurate feeling or sensation can be determined, like, I'm just so bewildered why my partner might do that, or God, I'm dumbfounded, like, I can't believe that happened, right? So it's like I show anger, but the brain can't just process I'm angry. It doesn't know where to go. But with those other words, it's like now we're like looking at it from a conscious lens. Now we can process it better. Okay. So it's a little bit about triggers, what they're about and what you can do about them. And this video is going to be about 3 different triggers that might create issues for a lot of people. And I think I said it already. Next week will also be about triggers, 3 more triggers, completely different. And then the following week is going to be triggers and body responses to triggers. What does our body do when it gets triggered? It's fascinating. Okay. So the triggers we'll talk about today, I'm just going to tell you about the triggers. If you're interested in working on them or hearing more or asking questions, maybe more private questions, come over to the Women's Self-Mastery community and hi, put hashtag live in the comment and where you're from, and hashtag replay for those of you who are watching the replay later. So on Thursday in the Women's Self-Mastery community, and the link is in the description, we are going to be, hey, Kathy, how are you? It's so good to have you here. On Thursday, we're going to be talking about we're going to have some activities and some possible solutions that you can use in your own life to maybe be able to mitigate some of this discomfort and this pain. All right, so the 3 triggers we're going to talk about today is feedback. So there's positive feedback, negative feedback, neutral feedback. And this feedback coming from some people can create like some really uncomfortable feelings for us. And we'll go over that, like worthlessness and that it feels wrong. Like, why does it feel wrong if somebody's giving me a compliment, right? Or feedback. So we'll talk about those. The next one is fear of the unknown. And that can even be like anxiety, or if someone's being very ambiguous with us, it can create a lot of anxiety. And the third one is other people's moods and how those affect us and can be triggering for us. Some of us have like this hypervigilance, and others of us conversely have like a hypersensitivity. So it's kind of like a blessing and a curse, because it was a curse, but now it can be a blessing, but not if it's still cursing us, right? So we have to look at those triggers to see how can we handle and process that, break it down in slow motion to maybe not have it be so painful. Okay, so trigger number one, feedback, positive, negative, neutral, all of these trigger some kind of shame. So not all feedback or compliments or whatever is going to trigger shame for us. But when certain behaviors of it come at us, we're triggered. Things from childhood, things from the past, and it's just infuriating. So like I said, I'm going to have a bunch of stories from my childhood for this video today. Okay, positive feedback, compliments. All right. Sometimes compliments can feel like manipulation. Like if somebody's buttering you up so that you do something with or for them. Oh, you're so good at that, right? And you're like, okay, you're complimenting me, but it feels icky. I don't like it. I don't like how it feels. I don't like what you're saying. I can tell something's off. There's hypervigilance, right? I can tell, or hypersensitivity. I know something's off. You can also, again, feel icky in some way if you feel like they've lied to you. So the story for this one is, I remember my mom telling all of us how we look so adorable and beautiful and everything. And I just thought, that's so weird. It just felt off and odd. And I just could feel like I couldn't trust her. So I decided, I devised a plan. I'm like, I'm going to wear different shoes, 2 different shoes, and I'm going to wear this color dress, but I'm going to put on like, I was like 16, I'm going to put on like this makeup and I'll mess my hair all up, and 2 different earrings, which was not cool at the time. And I just put myself together all wrong, right? And so then I said, okay, Mom, I'm getting ready to go. How do I look? And she barely glanced at me and went, oh, honey, you look beautiful. And I lost it on her. I was like, I do not, you're a liar. And I just lost my self. And the problem was not that she said what she said, but it was more that I couldn't trust her. And I realized maybe for the first time in my life, I can't trust my mom. And that was horribly terrifying and painful and scary. And it was so, so, so upsetting to me. Triggers are incredible and can happen suddenly at any time and catch us unaware and really heighten our attention or anxiety. So well said, my friend. So well said. It's so true. So another feedback that could be positive, like a compliment, is if something doesn't match our insides. You know, if somebody tells us, again, like they compliment us, but we feel like it's not a genuine compliment, they're just trying to get something out of us. So it's very uncomfortable. And we begin to feel like love is conditional, and we have to like appreciate it and act a particular way, or we're not going to get loved. And it's very, very, very uncomfortable. So another feedback, like I said, is negative, right? So we did positive, this is negative. Negative feedback can actually feel a little more comfortable because we're used to like, what is wrong with you, right? So we're used to that more, it's more genuine, even if you don't like it. It just feels more genuine when somebody's like just spewing it at you. Now, the genuineness isn't whether or not it's true. The genuineness is in what they're saying according to what you think that they feel. And you're like, okay, that matches. That's more true, where the positive feels like manipulation. Sometimes the feedback could be very uncomfortable for like, why can't you do things better? You know, your cousin was really so loving to her mom, and look how you act to me. And it can be very, very unsettling. Could be unfair. Maybe you're being compared to someone else that's maybe older than you, and you know they're able to do things better because they're 15 and you're like 11, right? So it can be very, very unfair what's happening. As children, we just seem to take all of it very, very seriously, and it can have devastating effects on us. when we're children, we don't really think this thought, but it's like, how can you criticize me so harshly when you don't even know what's going on with me? And so that goes back to the, like, I don't matter. Like, what's going on with me is not important to the other person, only whether or not I'm behaving in a way that helps them to feel better. All right, so that was positive and negative feedback. This is the neutral feedback. Neutral feedback is kind of emotionless and ambiguous. So you're like, I don't know, a statement that is just a little uncomfortable and you can sense that it's off, but you're like, did they like it or did they not like it? Like, anybody, can you help me? Like, you can't figure it out. With that sometimes comes ruminating, right? So maybe you have a partner and they sent you a text. So we can't hear it, we read it, and we're like, what do they mean by that? And we don't understand. So it's kind of this neutral, and then we assign emotion to it or meaning to it when it may or may not mean that, but it's still there. So sometimes, I don't know if you've done this, but I was like dating somebody and I was like, what did it say again? Wait, did they mean that? And I'll look at it again and again and again, or ruminate about something, a situation we had, and it felt like we kind of like maybe stepped away from each other a little bit. And it's like, oh my God, what happened? Right? So they may have said, oh, it's okay, don't worry about it. And you're like, but I still feel like I should worry about it. So there's something else going on, and our body's letting us know that either something actually is going on now, or there was something that happened in the past. But either way, something's happening, and it's like our emotions are our body's way of saying, hey, let's take a look at this. Let's see what is going on. Is there something I can do about it? And probably 99, maybe not that high, maybe 95% of the time you can. So why not do something about it, right? Feel better. That's what I say. So sometimes we live in emotionally distant households, and you don't know what the other person was thinking. So here's another one of those stories. I was a late bloomer when it came to college, and I was like in my late 20s, and I started painting, and I didn't know what I was doing, but I really wanted to do it. I had wanted to do it my whole life, and finally figured out, hey, I'm an adult. I can take a painting class if I want to. Don't even ask. Crazy childhood. Okay. So I took a class, and I don't know, it might have been the second or third semester at college. And I actually painted a flower. It was a lily in the style of Georgia O'Keeffe. So I copied her and to learn how she did it. So, whatever. I thought it came out pretty good. So I was like really excited and happy about it. And I had put it in a box because it was oil and, it's going to get everywhere on the car. But I showed it to my mom, and my mom was always very, like I said, complimentary and everything. And she was like, oh my God, it's beautiful and everything. Still a little like, it's a little over the top, but thank you very much, because I really wanted the compliment. And she's like, did you show your dad? I was like, for what? Because my dad and we didn't get along. He never, ever, ever, ever complimented anybody. So why would I show him? And I'm like, Mom, I don't want to be put down. Why? I'm not going to show him. And I knew she was going to say something. And I was like, don't you say anything. And she's like, okay, I won't. Of course she did. And so as we're walking out to the car, my mom says, oh, did Deb show you her painting? And I was like, oh, cannot believe you did that, right? I was so angry. Distrust, right? So we'll get to that in a moment. That's the second trigger. So I was like, okay. So I was like, cannot believe she did that. And my dad's like, I'm like, well, go ahead and show me. I was like, all right. So I opened it up. And he looks in the box. Yep, it's a flower. I don't know why, but I decided I couldn't let him hurt me. And so I just like, yay, he likes it. And I'm jumping around, and my mom's looking at me like I'm crazy. And I'm like, he likes it. And my mom's like, how can you tell? And I went, did he say anything bad about it? And she says, no. I go, then he likes it. And I looked at him, and the smallest, tiniest, most incremental little tiny lift on one side of his mouth, I knew. To me, that was hypersensitivity. I could see it. And so I was like, oh my God, he actually did like it. So I, trying to not get my feelings hurt, did a thing and actually found out if my dad doesn't make fun of it or put it down, he likes it. Huh, who knew? I didn't for like 30 years. All right. So let's see. Number two, the second part of feedback, the third part. So we had positive, negative, and the neutral. Whatever, yep, it's a flower, very neutral. We typically have some kind of reaction to something like that, especially, like I said, if it feels manipulative. All right, fear of the unknown. That one is the second trigger we're going to talk about today. And that has a tendency to create a lot of anxiety. Anxiety is I'm not comfortable when I don't know what's going on. I'm not comfortable. What time are we leaving? God, why won't they call me back? Applied for a job and I haven't heard back yet, or you read an email and you're like, oh my gosh, I hope they don't misread that. I'm going to have to rewrite that email. There's a lot of discomfort going on. So it's like, what is it that's happening? Now, sometimes it's warranted. So there might be, when you're a little kid, the kid down the block says, hey, you want to come spend the night? And it's like, well, let me talk to the moms, and the moms have to talk. And maybe your household is very unsafe and you get nervous because you're like waiting for that call to come in to say it's okay to leave your unsafe house and go to a house that feels safer, right? If we have anything like that go on, that stays with us, and there's an anxiety that comes up, right? So it's a feeling of always waiting for the other shoe to drop. Another thing that happens is family secrets that somebody in your family tells to another person. Now, I'm saying family secrets. Some of this I'm getting ready to say, not that big of a deal once you're an adult. But if you're a young girl and you end up, say, starting your period, but that was never talked about in your household, it may feel like a private family thing, right? But then you walk in and you hear your mom, oh yeah, Dad started her period, blah, blah, and she's blabbing it. It's like very upsetting to a young girl. If you're a young boy and say your mom walks in on you while you're in the middle of, I'll say the word masturbating, you got your book out or whatever, or probably your phone, but it's like this horrible sensation because you got caught at something maybe or whatever. If it wasn't talked about, you should feel shame, and you do feel shame. But conversely, don't you talk about alcoholic aunt so-and-so or, I don't know, pedophile uncle so-and-so, whatever. Don't you do it, but other people can do it, right? So there's anxiety that comes up because it's like, I'm very, very upset. So when you have an unhealthy sensation of you're waiting for something or looking for information, that you're uncertain about something, and what happens is all this emotional discomfort comes up. Could be fight, flight, freeze, which everybody seems to know those three, or fawn. And if you weren't here in the beginning, fawn is like fawning, Fawning, giving a lot of like attention to another person. So I have a tendency to think of it like people pleasing and or fixing. Oh my God, I better do something. I better fix it. I got to take care of it. Or being really super nice to somebody, waiting on them hand and foot, and but not in a healthy way. Okay, so let's see. So, if I didn't say so for these activities, I think I did. We're going to be doing either some solutions or some activities in the Women's Self-Mastery community on Thursday at at noon Eastern. So that's 11 Central. Okay, I live in Central, so I have to calculate it in my brain. You wouldn't think adding or subtracting one would be a big deal, but it sometimes is. Okay. The third thing is other people's moods, right? So I talked about hypervigilance and hypersensitivity. I'm going to ask a question because I was blown away when somebody asked me this question, and I couldn't believe how true it was for me. It's like either at work or at home, I can walk into a room and immediately know if something's off, and just be like, what happened? Oh, did y'all move such and such? Right? It's just like this immediate sensation, almost like there's a mirror image in my mind. And then I walk in and there's something off, something got moved or changed. And it's like, I know it. And I mean, it can be something as simple and crazy as a vase got turned. I mean, if it's got, some kind of marking on it or something, and I'm just blown away. So have you guys ever had that happen to you? If so, we got to talk about some other stuff, right? That's a fearful avoidant. That's from attachment styles that grew up in a household where things didn't feel very safe. And so you're very hyper vigilant about the mood or energy of mom or dad. For some people, there may be an addiction, an addict, like an alcoholic or drug addiction or something. And you're like, oh, I wonder how they're feeling today, right? And so you're just not sure what to do. So hypervigilance, you can be worried about what's going on, even if it really has nothing to do with you. So like some of the things I just said, you may not understand why somebody acts the way that they do, and you wonder if you did something. Another quick story. I was taken, it's a long story to get to the point where my mom decided I needed to take piano lessons, but let's just say my mom wanted me to take piano lessons. So every week she's taking me to this lady to take piano lessons. And apparently the lady told my mom I need to practice every day. And so I didn't know about any of this. I just was numb, just following. Deb, get in the car. We're going to piano lesson. Okay. So I would just get in the car so we could go. And it turned out that one day there's a big truck that pulls up and they unload and wheel a piano into our home. While they're doing this, they get in the house and they ask my dad where, and he points where he wants the piano to go. And then he turns around to me, this big man, right? Big to me. I think I was 11 at the time. And he puts his hands on his shoulders and he leans way over, or his hands on his hips, leans way over to me, and he starts wagging his finger at me and accusing me of like, this is all your fault. I'm wasting my money on you. You're never going to amount to anything. I don't know why I agreed to do this. And he's screaming at me. And I'm just like, like, I don't even know why. What is going on for him to be yelling at me like this? Now, of course, when you're young, you can't go, excuse me, what's your problem, right? Because you're going to get in trouble, either physically, emotionally, mentally, verbally, psychologically, or some other way. So you just kind of keep your mouth shut and take it, right? And so very, very traumatizing, very, very traumatizing. And I never knew that was wrong, that he did that. I didn't know why he was yelling at me. And that's the, not knowing what's going on, why somebody's doing what they're doing. I never knew why he was yelling at me, but I knew it wasn't right when I looked over and I saw the faces of the two guys doing the piano. One was literally mortified, like, oh, like he couldn't believe it. And the other one was just like, what would you call that? Like sad, just like just horrified, I guess you could say, that here's this man screaming at this child. The child's like, and you've seen things like this before. This is what's happening, right? And so when this child grows up, they get triggered, right? Because this horrible thing happened. All right, so let me get through this because going on longer than I always want to go on. All right, so blah, blah, blah. Okay, we talked about ruminating. Your parents, if you've had a parent that was inconsistent in their moods, where everything could be just like going along smooth, they're doing their thing, maybe you hear them, maybe you don't, but all of a sudden it's an explosion of rage or something. So from 0 to 100 like this, you always have to be on alert because you might have to run. You might have to get away from that parent, right? And so all these things are evoking all this upset. And when you're an adult, just say you're at work and a boss like kind of is fine most of the time, then like goes blah blah blah, and yells something because they got yelled at. All that triggering goes on, and what happens is there's part of the brain that's just flooding your body with chemicals, so you're having that same sensation and feeling. And we're going to talk more about that 2 Tuesdays from now, called triggers and body responses, is I think what we called it. All right. The unfortunate part about the child in this situation, this third trigger, is the child often will grow up feeling responsible for everyone and everybody's moods, everybody's feelings. And again, they're the fixer. They want to take care of everything. All right. One good thing for people to remember, I'll just throw this out there, is everybody's on their own path. We all had stuff in childhood. We all bring it with us unless we have worked on it. You hear people like, I've been doing work on myself for years. That's what it means, like trying to figure it out, trying to understand why I feel so uncomfortable about certain things. And so again, if you're somebody that wants, if you're female and you want to come into the women's self-mastery community, we're going to be doing some activities, some solutions on Thursday at noon Eastern. And I'll be sending out some information then. But we're done as far as all of that goes. I am going to do like a 30-second meditation at the end. So here at the end. So if you're in a safe space and you would like to do it too, you know, this brings up a lot of stuff. I would like to help calm us, because a lot of techniques can calm us as far as our emotions and upsets. But if they're not helping you resolve what the problem is, add to the thing, okay? So in this case, we're going to do just a little 30-second meditation. Like I said, if you feel like you can copy me safely, please feel free to do so, all right? So we're going to put our hand on our heart, going to close our eyes, take a deep breath in, and repeat after me. May I be peaceful. May I be well. May I experience the power of the love that resides within me. Take a deep breath in. Let it out. Open your eyes. From my heart to yours, until next time. We are done.